Welcome back to the channel, everyone. We're out at the large greenhouse today. We had replanted a lot of this. We harvested all of our radishes up, got peas coming up in here. We've got some cucumbers and some random radish seeds that decided to self-seed, or just seeds that didn't get germinated, are coming up in between all these cukes. We've got all of our strawberries. It is beautiful morning out here. I figured I'd come out and just walk through the greenhouse before I went out and talked about what I wanted to show everybody today. Got all of our nice beetroot, a couple kales. We've basically been using the other half of this greenhouse to produce some market foods, and then for the most part, this is all of our stuff here. We just had resown a bunch of kale. We are looking towards winter already with our kale and certain plants. We're trying to have well-established plants for the winter time because we will be trying to heat this greenhouse with Jean Pain compost heating and solar power. So if we can have well-established plants and get some hoops up over all of these, we can probably survive the winter without much heat. But being that we'll be able to have some type of heat from our compost systems, I think we'll have a good successful winter here. Let's head out and check the actual garden for the main focus of today's topic. I wanted to talk about our wood chips and gardening with wood chips, and basically what they don't tell you about gardening with wood chips. Now, the main focus of today is gardening with wood chips in your annual and perennial garden. We've got all of these tomatoes and all of the peppers and all of our perennial stuff mixed in this same garden. Now, this garden is 5 years old. This was all grass. We had just covered it with wood chips and began gardening. And there's a few things I want to talk about. So what I want to talk about pertaining to gardening, I don't want to step on any strawberries here. We've got tons of strawberries throughout this whole patch, and they are just coming on. We had a little bit of rain, and this whole strip of strawberries in the backside here are just producing like crazy and throwing off runners. We've got all types of runners. You can see how these really like to get in there. We will take this and cut that, and we can make a couple new plants, cut the flowers, cut the berries off, and this will be a whole new plant. I'm just gonna stick her back in the wood chips for a second here while I go talk about the rest of this garden. Now, the main factor in growing veggies in your wood chips is the fact that wood chips contain 200 to 1 or 300 to 1 carbon to nitrogen ratios in a pile. So we split this whole pile up. This was several piles we got from our local tree service here, and we just basically laid all these out in between the rows, and the wood chips do get mixed in over top and kind of fall into where our compost is. And that leads me to the next subject. We had just basically done compost strips and strips of wood chips because we need a bacterial dominated soil in order to produce good tomatoes. We have not seen the best production off of this garden till about this year. This is about the 4th or 5th year of having these wood chips down and layering compost in the middle, because all of that carbon that is contained in your wood chips is seeking nitrogen, and it is seeking to break down back to natural materials and not be a wood chip anymore. So while those wood chips are bonding with all of the nitrogen and basically composting, they are sapping the resources right out of the ground. So you will see a deficiency for the first couple years until these wood chips really break down. And if they're not mixed up and just laying over top of each other year after year, they will start to produce very, very good beneficial soil, but it's going to be mainly fungal dominated soil for all of your berries, your blackberry bushes, our Asian pear trees. Here you can see our Aju, our Shinku Asian pears. This tree is about 5 years old. We've got some of our sunchoke, some of our cut flowers, all types of plants, ranging from perennial to annual to biennial. We've got everything growing out in this area here. We've even got our small persimmon tree coming over here, and the production on this tree is amazing. This tree has actually grown about 2 feet this year. This is only a 3-year-old tree, and it was a small cutting when we had first bought it. So all of the wood chips breaking down has really benefited the persimmons, the Jasta berries, and all of the actual perennials out here. Now, we covered up this entire area with wood chips, and it was just grass before, and that grass died out very quickly. So those wood chips combined with all of the nitrogen from the green grass and then some. So we definitely saw some deficiencies for the first year, 2, 3 years. before this actually started to be a very good beneficial area to grow in. So it's not a quick turnaround when you're doing a back to Eden method, and this wasn't necessarily a back to Eden method. We were just trying to hold more moisture, because having these wood chips down, we're seeing 20, 30, 40 degree temperatures 6 to 8 inches in, lower than the surface temperature of just bare soil. So this is holding so much moisture. We don't ever have to water out here because all these wood chips hold all that moisture, and they hold a cool temperature underneath the soil. We've had some baking 90, 100 degree days, and this soil will be 70 or 80 degrees underneath, and that is amazing to us. Now, we made those observations that the nitrogen was being pulled out of the soil, and our plants were showing nitrogen deficiencies because the wood chips were getting mixed in and blown around and just kind of naturally decaying into where our annual plants are. So what we've been doing to combat the nitrogen deficiency that we've observed over the years is basically just to pull all of these wood chips back up and water the wood chips in so they kind of stay in place. And then we come through and just dump all of this compost in these strips. And that creates a nice bacterial dominated soil, or bacterial dominated compost, because all of your tomatoes and your peppers and all your annual veggies really like to interact with that bacterial soil and share with it. You can see some nitrogen deficiency on this plant here, all the yellowing of the leaves, and it has some wood chips mixed in around the base of it, so I'm sure there's wood chips in the soil with it also. Now, the added benefits of having the wood chips down that I've already noted on is the temperature underneath the soil and the moisture retention. One thing I haven't touched on is the amount of life that these wood chips bring. We've created an environment basically like the bottom of a forest. So all of these wood chips are bringing in beneficial insects, beneficial life, microorganisms, and bacteria to our soil that are creating a perfect environment for all of these plants to survive and not have to be fed. All of these will just drop more wood chips around all of our plants. Our strawberries continue to spread, persimmon continues to grow, all of our blackberries are spreading out. We've shown many videos on propagating. Our Asian pears are doing lovely out here. We've got all types of little stuff. We've even got some of our Egyptian walking onions in a little cluster here, and they've really shown right through all of these wood chips. I don't think they're affected nearly as much because they are perennial and they will survive in pretty well any type of soil. So being able to have all of these beneficial insects in all of these wood chips really combats all of the negative bugs that we do see every year, no matter whether we have wood chips or not. We've got lots of bugs that like to eat our plants. There is a lot of activity underneath all of these wood chips. We can just dig down. So when we dig down here, we've got ants, a whole bunch of life, fungus, microorganisms, all types of stuff, and it's wet. It is wet 5 to 6 inches down, and that's our main purpose of having all these wood chips, was weed control and moisture control and keeping the temps down when we have these brutal summers. So in short, your wood chips do suck nitrogen out of the soil because no matter where they're at, they will be touching soil or grass, and they will want to combine with that to compost down. So keeping that in mind, you want to keep your bacterial dominated soil for your veggies untouched by your wood chips in order to keep a good production rate up on these plants, or else you will see deficiencies until the wood chips break down and lose all of their potency for carbon. We've shown on videos in the past that you can get wood chips really hot, and you can get them composting, and they will compost for 12 months to 2 years. A nice wood chip pile can burn for a long time. And when we have all that broken down wood chip matter, we like to feed all of our perennials with that because it mainly is fungal dominated compost, but it has bacteria and microorganisms, just not the same bacterial content and microorganisms that grow in your regular browns and greens compost from kitchen scraps and yard waste. So those are just some more things to keep in mind when everybody's talking about using wood chips in the garden. There's a lot more to it than they like to lead on. I'd really like to thank everybody for watching these videos. We can come over here and check on some of our pear trees. We've got pretty decent pears coming off already. We've got some nice pears coming on. These are all Bartlett pears here, and you can see pears all over the tree. I wanted to talk real quick. This area here, I haven't really shown much. We've got our hazelnuts down here, and we've got a whole row of our Gordon elderberries. We've got our Juneberry trees. They are also called service berries. Those are a nice rare tree to have around here. Nobody's heard of them around here in our area, so being able to grow those and keep them growing and keep them alive. They are double the size they were 2 years ago when we got the little tiny stick cutting that we had purchased. So that will just be another plant we add to our repertoire and are going to be able to propagate and sell to our local community and share with everybody here. I just came out here because I wanted to point out that we have this strip here of all grass, and that is what our garden over here used to be. So we will be bringing in a whole new load of wood chips, filling this out, and we are going to create a tree line to block off all of this corn and any pesticides that can draft over from that corn.